Welcome to another broadcast of Philosophic Perspectives on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are archived and you can pick them up at artistfirst.com. And now out to your host, it's Arthur D. Schwartz.
Hello, everybody. Nice to have you with me again. It's been about a month. I took a little mini vacation. I didn't have a show last couple weeks ago. But here I am. And tonight's show I've entitled Fortress Philosophy versus Demagoguery. So those of you who have been listening to me probably realize that I'm not really Donald Trump's biggest fan. I've been ranting about him for a long time. My ears perked up way back early in the campaign where he did that ridiculous thing concerning David Duke, where he was asked, David Duke had endorsed him and says, "You accept his endorsement," whatever. He says, "I never heard of this David Duke." Well, who is he? And anyway, this thing would just turn out to be a fraud because, we kept after that event happened, it was, news media came out that Trump has made many references to Donald Duke in the past. So, or at least a number of references, and one of them was recorded on the Today Show. So, that's when my mind opened to it. But now, of course, we've got this unbelievable, the fact that he got as far as he got is unbelievable. But the unbelievable thing now is this meltdown is called, but all of this nonsense going on, and this guy. So that David Duke episode caught my attention because it's kind of a classic form of demagoguery and shiftiness. Because what he did there was he got it out there, then he denied it, and then he pretended that it was misinterpreted. And meanwhile, that's a little trick because that was like a little signal to the white supremacist movement and all the whack jobs and all the hate groups. Here's a guy that, hey, maybe I'm on your side. Now, the thing with Trump, it's really a question. I haven't decided if he is a demagogue. There's no question, which we can go into because I do want to discuss demagoguery versus philosophy. That's the thing. There's a point. I think when things like this happen, it's instructive to see. When something really bad happens, to see how we react, and I think we become a stronger nation. And in an individual life, when you overcome something terrible, you become a stronger person. So this is important, and I'm going to discuss that. But in his case, I'm not really sure if he's definitely a demagogue, but I'm not sure if he's filled with hate. And that the demagoguery is just kind of shallow. He just says whatever he wants. Well, he's obviously studied demagoguery, which we'll get to. But if he's really that bad of a guy, that would remain to be seen because he might just be doing it to get elected. And then when he gets elected, I was listening to somebody on the radio, is a very conservative radio talk host in the Boston area, and his view is, well, if Trump were to get in, he'd just be the carnival barker. He'd let other people run the show. He's not going to really. So, is that possible? It's possible. But you know what? It doesn't matter at this point of the game. When people pull what he's been pulling, it's absolutely unacceptable. And that's why you can see all these traditional Republicans, and high-level Republicans who supported who've been members of the two Bush administrations recently, even going back to the Reagan administration, and they're actually, some of them are going to actually said they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Some just said, well, they're not going to vote for Trump. So this is the thing about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the little introduction I wrote to this, which is very short and explains everything that we're going to cover today. Just hold on one second. Okay. Demagoguery concerns political speech and behavior that seeks to persuade the people on grounds of untruth, fear, hatred, and divisiveness. There has been much commentary on the emergence of Donald Trump as a bona fide demagogue, and the commentary is clearly justified. The language and intention of the demagogue is precisely the opposite of the disciple of philosophy. Philosophy is the coordinated study of what can constitute grounds of belief, beliefs about what is true or not true, good or bad, and right or wrong, sensible and not sensible, practical or impractical, well-intended or maliciously intended. The demagogue, however, doesn't value the truth. Those questions don't concern him. In fact, the truth is his worst enemy. The demagogue is solely concerned about acquiring and holding on to political power. For the demagogue, truth is merely an expedient, and a lie is as good as the truth if it achieves the desired result. I just lost my place here. Here we go. Okay, the spectacle of a skilled demagogue like Donald Trump is something we have rarely seen in the United States. We have had them, Huey Long and Joe McCarthy, for example. However, the modern age of advanced communication and the Internet, I think, magnifies the viral nature of demagoguery. However, at the same time, the Internet age also allows a concerned and vigilant media and social networkers to sound the alarms. The strange and extremely worrisome nature of the current presidential campaign has a ways to go yet, but I am proud of the many responsible members of the media who have carefully spelled out exactly what this demagogue Trump is all about. If you look into some of the many articles online that describe Trump's outrageous behavior and read some of the many studies of demagoguery, you can clearly see that Trump is following a script that exposes the mean-spiritedness of this very dangerous man. Fortress Philosophy, the show that I did last month on July 6th, which was a discussion with James McCann, author of Debunking Holocaust Denial Theories, had a similar theme that sought to impose the rule of reason over irrationally driven motives that are quite similar to demagoguery. In times like these, we have fortress philosophy to help defend against the very real forces of anti-reason. That concludes my little summary. There are two links I have on. I'm looking at the meetup page on the show page, at the Artist First show page for this show. The very top, where you see in bold print. Let me be specific this time. In-depth show descriptions. That happens to link to the meetup page, and you can read the description I just read to you, and also the links at the bottom of the page. I have one link, which is a Wikipedia article on the demagogue. And let me just say, in Wikipedia, you don't have the author, but he did a fine job. Whoever you are, my compliments. A really, really nice piece. Just go to Wikipedia, and it's demagogue, Demagogue. The link also is on the meetup page, which once again you can find on my show page on Artist First Radio. At top, it's a link, in-depth show descriptions. That's the link to the meetup page. The other link I have here is from New York Times. It was published December 5th of 2015, so it's almost a year ago. But they were on to him. The title is 95,000 words, many of them ominous, from Donald Trump's tongue. And when you read it, it's, they actually say it right here, for example. The transcriptions yielded 95,000 words and several powerful patterns, demonstrating how Mr. Trump has built one of the most surprising political movements in decades, and historians say, echoing the appeals of some demagogues of the past century. So I'm going to use these two documents I have here a little bit. I'll tell you one thing. On the Wikipedia argument, he does a nice job. He goes, he or she who wrote this talks about the demagogues of the past. Some were very well known to you. Some go back to ancient Greece, which most people wouldn't I know about. But they have, 5 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 categories that the demagogue it utilizes in his hatred, in trying to scare and divide the people in order to gain power. And let me go through them very quickly. As the article says, demagogues don't use, all demagogues don't use all of these, but they don't all, they're not all identical, but they do share these common traits. And, and in the case of Trump, it's amazing how clearly some are, almost all are being used. The first one they mention is scapegoating. That's maybe the most famous, and for example, Hitler scapegoating the Jews and that kind of in Nazi Germany. I would say of all of them, if in the case of Trump, this is probably not the most. I mean, you can say he's scapegoating the Mexicans, scapegoating Muslims, but I'm not. That you can say to some degree. So you can say he's scapegoating. He's certainly making an enemy out of them. So sure, that would apply to definitely. Another one, fear-mongering. Well, there's no doubt that he's engaging in fear-mongering. He's engaging in fear-mongering on almost every single level. And he's calling, Hillary Clinton. He's turning. Well, he actually not like the devil. He called her the devil. So, and so much stuff is the meltdown has been going on so long now, and particularly after the Democratic convention. But it's been going through. I mean, all these months. I mean, I've commented on it many, many times on this show, and so fear-mongering is a big part of it. Lying. Well, here's the thing. Lying. Yeah. Does he do anything else but lie? Not very much. Everything out of his mouth. I mean, I read an article sometime back. I don't think I saved the link, but they did like a count of the percentage of things out of his mouth that are lies, and it was like 85% lies. I mean, it's unbelievable. Let me see. I'll read a little bit here what it says in the article. While any politician needs to point out dangers to the people and criticize opponents' policies, demagogues choose their words for their effect on the audience's emotions, usually without regard to factual truth or the real severity of the danger. Some demagogues are opportunistic, monitoring the people and saying whatever currently will generate the most heat. Other demagogues may themselves be so ignorant or prejudiced that they sincerely believe the falsehoods they tell. I mean, this is Donald Trump to a T. Let me move down. I'm not going to read the article, but I'm going to read the categories that are very instructive. Emotional oratory and personal magnetism. Well, that applies. I mean, Trump has emotional oratory. I guess some people consider him to have magnetism. I personally don't. I mean, I think he looks like a buffoon. He's not a good speaker, but he's a good speaker, as the article explains, in terms of he's comes across like tries to be a regular guy, and he even uses swear words, and he is inarticulate. This is extremely, because it's so mundane and so everymanish. So perhaps that it lends itself to what you call magnetism, because in other words, the everyman becomes the king, if you want to put it that way. So I wouldn't call him having magnetism, but some people see him that way. Attacking the news media, absolutely. He has threatened news reporters. He has been kicked out of his press conferences. He has tried to say that he would prosecute if he got in news people, journalists, if he feels he was smeared, or that if the journalist said something or printed something or reported something which he was offended by in some way. I mean, absolutely. Violence and physical intimidation. That's the next one. Absolutely. You see him at these rallies, and there's I saw one video where you've probably seen it if you're paying any attention at all. He's saying, I would have punched you in the mouth. And he, of course, one of his dogs actually did slug. Remember that one? Slugged somebody in the audience. So So there you go. I mean, clearly he and then there was all the violence that has been erupting around some of his events, and his violent language and his threats and intimidation. How many times has he said you got to be serious? He referring to somebody, including the Speaker of the House. He better watch himself. He better watch himself. A threat. Listen to this. Personal insults and ridicule. Oh my gosh, this is Donald Trump. Crooked Hillary, blah, blah, blah. Everything is a name calling. I got to read this because this is going to ring true. This article is not written for Donald Trump. I mean, this is I don't know how long it's been on there, but it's probably been on there for years. It was updated recently, so I can't swear by this, but I'm quite certain that this is this information has been about. I only looked at this today, actually, so I can't swear by it. But this is what, so personal insults and ridicule. I'm going to read this little paragraph because it's amazing. Many demagogues have found that ridiculing or insulting opponents is a simple way to shut down reasoned deliberation of competing ideas, especially with an unsophisticated audience. Pitchfork Ben Tillman, for example, was a master of the personal insult. He got his nickname from a speech in which he called President Grover Cleveland an old bag of beef and resolved to bring a pitchfork to Washington to poke him in his old fat ribs. James Kimball Vardaman consistently referred to President Theodore Roosevelt as a coon-flavored this is the word I'm not familiar with, miscregenerationist. It's basically racist. And once posted an ad in a newspaper for 16 big, fat, mellow, rancid coons to sleep with Roosevelt during a trip to Mississippi. I mean, the coon is, if in case you don't know, it's a smear on black people. Of course, this is being written back in when we know it, back when racism was quite out there in the open. A common demagogic technique is to pin an insulting epithet on an opponent by saying it repeatedly in speech after speech when saying the opponent's name or in place of it. For example, James Curley referred to Henry Cabot Lodge, his Republican opponent for senator of Massachusetts, as Little Boy Blue. William Hale Thompson called Anton Cermak, his opponent for mayor of Chicago, Tony Baloney. Huey Long called Joseph E. Randall, clearly his elderly opponent for senator, as Old Feather Duster. Joe McCarthy liked to call Secretary of State Dean Acheson the Red Dean of Fashion. The use of epithets and other humorous invectives diverts followers' attention from soberly considering how to address the important public issues of the time, scoring easy laughs instead. Now, does that sound like Trump or not? I mean, all this name calls, and not only with Hillary during the Republican campaigns, Lion Ted Cruz. He had names for all of them. And now he has names, Crooked Hillary Clinton, and he's got several other names, and he's the devil, she's the devil, and all this name calling. And come to find that this is just one of the standard techniques of the demagogue. I swear, let me just take a step back, because I've mentioned this before. There was an article in the 90s, and I actually mentioned this on one of the shows. I think it was, I don't have the author's name, but I have it written somewhere, but unfortunately it's just coming to my mind now. And when Trump was, during his first marriage, or second, it was the first or second marriage. It might have been Marla. I'm not sure. It might have been either the first or second marriage. And that she reported, I'm not sure if this was during the divorce they were having or while they were still married, but she told a reporter that the Trump on the bed table had one of Hitler's books. at first I thought it was Mein Kampf, but actually it was, I think, a book of his speeches. And so that's one thing. I mean, so you see, he's familiar. He apparently studied Adolf Hitler, and this is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. During his campaign, he has been retweeting white supremacist websites. Again, I'm not making this up. I'm not making it up. It's online. I don't think he denies it. You really can't deny it. It's the truth. And of course, there was the case where he had the Jewish, the Star of David, and with that Hillary Clinton ad on a pile of money. We talked about that. I remember I brought up with last month when I interviewed James Mercan. And I mean that and he said, well, that's just supposedly that star is just really a sheriff's star. What a bunch of baloney! Another lie. First of all, you saw a sheriff's star. I mean, it's even though it's six-pointed, they have the little circles around the tips. It's nothing like it. And the thing is, the way it was done, it was all red. It was the only thing it reminded me of was the pictures of the Jews when they're being rounded up to go to the concentration camps. And probably wore in the concentration camps, and they had this cloth Star of David sewn onto their uniform, the prison uniform. And if you've studied anything about the Holocaust, you would have seen these pictures where Jews, before they were rounded up, they were in the streets with the big, the equivalent of, I guess, is the scarlet. What's the Scarlet Label? What's the novel by Hawthorne? Do you know Scott?
I'm sorry, I do not.
The Scarlet Letter.
Oh, the Scarlet Letter.
The Scarlet Letter.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
yes.
which in that case was adultery. But I mean, the thing is, this Star of David that the Nazis used was sort of the equivalent. It was the mark. The stigma that they actually sewed onto the lapel. And so I just used sort of like the Scarlet Letter, which was A, standing for adultery, because back in those days there's nothing worse than adultery. Back in the old days of the early settlers, and so the thing that I'm getting at here is what he's doing is only this is like he's been studying this. So I mentioned the Star of David because it came to my mind because I did finish while I was finished. I interrupted myself. Sorry. That ad was ripped off from one of the white supremacist websites. So that's I'm sorry, my mind meandered. I'm getting to an age where my mind starts meandering a little bit, but that's the connection, that it was on one of the white supremacist websites. He ripped it off and posted it. So and then he denied it. What he was doing, he knows exactly what he's doing. If you look down these categories, you really get the feeling that he has been studying this a long time. Once again, I go back because I remember reading about that he had Adolf Hitler's book in his bed table every night. And so this is not a mistake. He's such a slimy kind of a guy. He has all this stuff going on, and then he says, "Oh, you're misinterpreting it." He puts all this crap out there, and then he backs away from it. And you know what? He almost. I mean, the election's not over yet. People think he's going to lose, but I won't. I'm not. I'm nervous about it because I'm not sure. Largely because unfortunately, Hillary Clinton has her own problems. But let me tell you something. As far as problems in terms of who should be president of the United States, whatever her issues are, it's nothing compared to this. I mean that. I'm not even trying to diminish the seriousness of some of the claims against her, but in the total scheme of things, I mean, this thing about, well, I'm not going to get on. That's for another time. The things, I mean, I'm concerned about some things, but it's nothing compared to this. And I mean, why did she? It's just nothing. Not nearly as devious and as dangerous and as threatening the actual welfare, if not the existence of the United States of America. because if you got because the thing about Trump is he's actually said things that basically would imply that he would ignore the law. So he said at one point, well, I mean, I think it might have been concerning when he was saying that he would violate international law and perform torture on the some of the prisoners that we in terms of the ISIS or whomever or with some of the Islamic prisoners, whomever it is that torture is okay. And basically, what he said was, well, what if the court ordered you not to do that? And he basically said, well, they have to come and get me. And so you're looking at the standoff that he's willing to foment. So let me just continue. So this, you can see some of these stuff is just uncanny how closely it looks like he's has a script that he's following. One here is called folksy posturing. Well, to a degree, gross oversimplification. I'll go with that. He doesn't even have any policy statements until very, very recently. He finally came out with his foreign policies to extent that it's a policy. Scapegoating. I'm going to read it. Scapegoating, as described above, is one form of gross oversimplification, treating a complex problem, which requires patient reasoning and an analysis to sort out, as if it results from one simple cause or can be solved by one simple cure. For example, Huey Long claimed that all the U.S. economic problems could be solved just by sharing the wealth. Hitler claimed that Germany had lost World War I only because of a stab in the back. Well, yeah, that reminds me. Yes, if you watched Trump's speech early in the week on the foreign policy, and no, this is on the economy. That's right, this is on the economy. And I didn't see the whole speech, but I saw a clip of it, and the clip I saw said, and he said, and it's not going to be that difficult. So once again, he's making things very, very simple because that's all you need to do. It's such a simple fix. Leave it to me. I know. This is matching him almost to the T. Once again, this is the Wikipedia, and it's the article is just entitled Demagogue, Demagogue. It's very, very good. My kudos to whoever wrote it. Let's see. And the last one is accusing opponents of weakness and disloyalty. So he certainly does that. So almost to a T, this matches Trump. It matches almost exactly the archetypical format, or he's using the doctrines, the principles, the notions that demagogues through the ages have used. To me, it looks like, I'll say two things. It looks to me like he has actually been studying this. And then I'll say my second part is, as a matter of fact, I believe he has. I truly do. I think he's had this in his mind for years. I mean, he's been dabbling with running for office. I don't think he actually. Last time he almost ran. But I mean, I know there's several election cycles. I remember Trump's name being mentioned, and he was considering it, and then he would back off. But I think he's been preparing this, and I didn't really pay any attention to him. Like I've said many times up until this campaign, I never watched his stupid program. But then again, I don't watch any of these so-called reality shows, so I didn't pay attention to it. At one point, I thought, he's an interesting character. I didn't feel much about it. But now that this has happened and I read into it, read other things, I mean, he's exposed himself for whom he is for a long, long time. The way he has treated African Americans in his projects he was building, and he actually, I think, was discriminating against them. and in a court. He was ordered by the court to exchange, and I'm forgetting. There's been several things that's come out, that this has been more or less this way for a long time. But I do truly believe that he has been studying demagoguery, and I totally believe that. Well, I want to. You know what? I'm going to take a break now, but when we get back, I'm going to talk about the two things that have been in the news recently. One is they're both extremely important, but one is the one I want to spend most time on. The first one has to do when he talked about the second, in a speech he gave and said, "Well, folks, if Hillary gets elected and she nominates the Supreme Court justice, there's nothing you can do about it." And then he says, "Well, unless you Second Amendment folks can, well, I don't know." And everyone interpret that to be as basically a very sly threat. And we have, and of course, we have some real nutcase in New Hampshire that is, I think it's veteran advisor in New Hampshire, Trump's veteran co-chair or something for the veterans. And he's out there just first he said that Hillary Clinton should be shot in front of a firing squad. No, should have been assassinated. And now he had to retract that. Now he just came out the other day saying that, well, she should just be, put in front of a firing squad. And the thing about it is, okay, he's a nut job. Why is he still there? This is on Trump's campaign staff in New Hampshire. Why is he still there? This is what I see. He first recommended Clinton's assassination, and now he suggested her be going up in front of a firing squad. And last time I checked, I think you have to be convicted before that happens, right? Why is he still there? And the second thing is the one I'm actually most interested in is this whole thing where he came out, folks, I think this election is going to be rigged. And that is one of the classic elements of demagoguery. As a matter of fact, in the list I was reading, let's see. Oh, I saw it someplace. But this idea of undermining, I think it's under one of the categories, undermining undermining the institutions of the society, so that you actually mistrust the very workings of your government, because that's exactly what he's doing. I actually tweeted that what I think what he did by doing so. Well, you know what? I'm going to get back to it, folks. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when I get back, I'll pick up where I left off.
This is George Thorogood of the Destroyers, and you're listening to Artist First Radio.
In Ethical Empowerment, Virtue Beyond the Paradigms, Arthur D. Schwartz presents an ethical theory that is a framework for evaluating moral conundrums that go beyond legalistic rulemaking, dogmatism, and preconditioned thinking. The book is as much an ethical framework for unconventional ideas as it is for staying with convention. Ethical Empowerment is a manifesto of non-doctrinaire perspective. Ultimately, the hypnotic thinking of ideology and dogmatism can only be overcome by returning to the true source and essence of morality, which is nothing less than universal love. Discover how the philosophically liberating approach of the ethical empowerment can be applied to the range of ethical, social, and political controversy. Read about a plan to eliminate all political parties. Entertain the possibility of an overhaul of the patent system and its replacement with a system that rewards inventors while eliminating monopolistic control of patents and technological suppression. Many other transformative ideas are discussed in the book, including issues related to the monetary system, real estate, scientific paradigms, and a rational approach to conspiracy theory. While ethical empowerment will challenge your mind to consider new perspectives, the ethical challenge is always to keep the diversity, depth, and breadth of perspective within the boundaries of love. Ethical Empowerment is available at Amazon.com and most online booksellers in both print and e-book editions. Thanks for joining us, everyone, on Philosophic Perspectives on the Artist First Radio Network. Got a question or comment? Send it to us at dj@artistfirst.com. Now back to your host, Arthur D. Schwartz.
Well, I thank you, Scott. So when we left off, so this is the biggest thing that made me so angry, and I think a lot of people, a lot of experts have been commenting on this, that when Trump, said, well, I think, that if we lose Pennsylvania, the only way that could happen is that the election was stolen. So in other words, if he wins, it wasn't stolen, but if he loses, it was stolen. I mean, he said that. Sorry. I mean, look at that. That's exactly what he said. Well, you know that because it's been in the news. And then he said that, he's going to appoint, he wants all his people to be out there and watching to make sure that there's no hanky-panky and the people aren't trying to vote 5 times. Well, the thing about, look, the first, this is a kind of complex thing because, I think there is some voter fraud that goes on. However, this is not the way to deal with it, and there's no indication why it's necessarily worse in Pennsylvania than other places. This obviously was, again, this is just a completely absurd contrivance so that he can undermine the system. That's what he's doing. So can you imagine all these Trumpians out there? This is like almost like the worst, trying to create the perfect storm. And can you imagine what happens, the risk in terms of violence that could occur? Can you just imagine it? And of course, I think, there are regulations. You can't get too close to a polling place, but you can be away a certain distance. The police can't be monitoring every polling place adequately enough if they're having a whole bunch of people looking to start a fight, to be blunt. So let's just be blunt about it. This is scary as all get out. This is this guy Trump truly seems to care about nothing other than himself. That's what, of course, the Muslim gentleman whose son was killed, and Trump picked a fight with him because he was criticizing, because this man was criticizing him at the Democratic National Convention. And I kind of lost my train of thought why I wanted to bring that up. But the thing I'm trying to say is he's trying to pick a fight. I did lose my train of thought, but he can't. Oh, that's right. That's what I'm trying to say. He actually mentioned that, Mr. Trump, you care nothing about anybody else except yourself. And then, of course, what happened is that last week, too, or the week before, he accepted, the medal, the medal, what's the highest medal for bravery, and someone was given to him, and he said, "Well, I've always wanted one of these, and this is an easier way to get it." Of course, that caused a lot of outrage. The thing about it is, he cares. It seems to be truly he's willing to risk wide-scale degradation of America simply so that he can get elected. It looks like he would do absolutely anything. Now, even Richard Nixon, one of my least favorite people, even Richard Nixon, and in the case of the election of 1960, a lot of historians think that the election may well have been stolen from Nixon in that case because of corruption in Chicago. Yeah, that's possible. But the point I'm trying to make is even Richard Nixon had enough patriotic sentiment that he did not challenge the election. And Al Gore, who I used to like Al Gore, I'm not so much a fan today, but Al Gore, who won the popular vote and lost by a Supreme Court verdict, which was highly, highly questionable, and he accepted it. We have a tradition in this country that when these things happen, in these extremely close elections, which is the only way something like this could happen, where it would cost you the election, that we had this remarkable tradition of the loser gracefully bowing out. It's happened other times. Back in the 19th century with the Tilden, but there was this huge meltdown of the electoral system, and he did not contest. Here we have Trump claiming foul more than 2 months before the election even occurs. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. He's willing to undermine the system. He's willing to do any. Well, listen. He already said that he thinks other countries should have nuclear bombs. That they should have nuclear bombs. He's always already telling, saying that Russia should basically be allowed to essentially take over Ukraine, more or less. He's willing to denigrate NATO, the NATO allowance, which I think has very significantly supported the peace since World War II. There hasn't, been any World War yet, although that's arguable, I suppose, with all what's going on now, but not technically speaking. And so he cares about nothing, absolutely nothing, other than Donald Trump. Well, anyway, so this thing about undermining the election system, the actual casting of votes, which he is trying to do right now. He's setting the stage so that when after the election, he says he's trying to delegitimize the election results for what he's doing. Shameful. This guy could go down in history, like another Benedict Arnold. Donald Trump and Benedict Arnold, two of the most infamous names in American history. I predict that. That's how disgusting he is, and how unpatriotic. And he is a traitor. So I tweeted something. By the way, I did catch on to some of you might have been this phrase. Many people are saying. So he said many people are saying that, and I think this is when something about was Clinton and I'm trying to remember the case here where, well, it had something to do with the Libyan thing anyway, but he was saying many people are saying. And so, and then a lot of people started to make fun of that because that is very, very close, demagoguic. Because when you say many people are saying, you can say anything. That doesn't mean anything. Many people say, who? Who's saying? How many people are saying? Well, anyway, and so there's a lot, and I tweeted a bunch of many people are saying jokes. But the thing here is that many people are saying that I'm losing my mind. Okay. And another one is nobody knows. So, of course, nobody knows except Donald Trump. It's a way of getting little things out there. And let me just get back here. So we were talking about the delegitimizing the election. And so I want to call right now. I want to have Scott come in because on the break he was talking about. I think he's referring to the 2004 election where we had accusations of cheating, a voter fraud in Ohio involving the Diebold machines.
I think that was the election.
Yeah. What's that?
I think it was that or the first Bush election. One of the two.
I think it was 04 because I remember talking to people about it, and I think it was in reference to the Kerry. That's why. So my mind is telling me I'm associating with Kerry, and that was 2004. 2000 would be it wouldn't have been. It was Kerry because it wouldn't have been Gore because Ohio, it wouldn't have made a difference, I don't think, in the Gore's election.
I think it would have. If they could rig the voting machines, it'd have an effect on any election.
Okay.
There were reports. These are unsubstantiated reports. But over in Youngstown, remember they made those people stand in line for 6 hours to vote. Remember that?
Right.
Just miserable conditions. And some of the voting machines, it was alleged, showed vote counts of like 43,000 when there should have only been 1,500, 2,000 votes cast.
Right.
Tens of thousands over what it should be. So I don't know that those are anything more than left-wing rumors. But what I do know is that on, I believe the radio station was WNIR 100.1 FM out of Akron, Ohio. And some anonymous programmers that worked at Diebold said that we're the people that are writing the code that which these machines will work, and we are going to publish on the internet the code that shows clearly that they're going to rig this election. And they did post stuff on the internet. And the FBI stepped in, and the FBI took those sites down. And these guys were trying to become whistleblowers, but who knows what happened to them. They might still be in prison, or maybe they got rendered somewhere, as we do with other people. But the FBI was able to take those websites down, lickety-split, under the intellectual property rights that Diebold was claiming. But, around here, Northeastern Ohio was a big buzz. I bet a whole bunch of people are hearing about this for the first time. The people who built the voting machines went public and tried to blow the whistle and said, look, here it is in black and white. If you can read computer code, you can see clearly they're going to steal the election. Why did President Bush stop in Ohio on his way home from where did he live? Somewhere in Texas. I can't remember the name of the town right offhand.
Right.
But after he voted on Election Day, he went to see Kenneth Blackwell, the former Attorney General, Republican Attorney General, or act at the time, and he stopped in Columbus for a short meeting. Now, why would you do that? Election Day.
Right.
Election Day. Well, you had to stop in Ohio to see.
Yeah, right. What's suspicious? It doesn't prove anything, but it's
coincidence.
Suspicious. Right? What's interesting to note, though, but this is, that is, of course, for helping the Republicans, and so, the point here is, what Trump is. I'm digressing now, but yeah. But here you have a case where it's true. I agree. I think we do need to fix the election system. I think one thing we should do. I don't understand why. I believe in the federal system, but I think every state should have the same standard voting procedure. It makes no sense. Fairness shouldn't be a state by state issue. So I think that the whole thing should be standardized. The whole thing, you need to have they probably should do away with the voting machines. They should all have paper ballots. You can be electronically recorded, and go through the reader. But where I vote, it's on a paper ballot. It's not counted. I don't think it goes under its. It's photographically tabulated, but it's it's not a voting machine per se. And I think there should be one standard, and it is important to have a paper backup. So, the thing is, I do agree. The integrity of elections is important. There's no question about that. I'm not criticizing Trump on that score. What I'm criticizing him about is that he's picking this one place And he's saying it's going to be. It's the only way it's going to happen is that if he loses, it's got to be stolen, and if of course he wins, it's fine. And even if he's 10 points behind Hillary Clinton in the polls in Pennsylvania right now, he's 10 points back in most polls in Pennsylvania, and ahead in most other places as well. And she is, and so. But if he loses, it's stolen. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there is election fraud, but what we need to do is to solve that problem. But the example you're giving, of course, Scott, is the fact that was helping the Republican side. Whether it's 2004, whatever it was, that's helping the Republican side. So it's and the other thing about it too is the elections aren't managed by the federal government. They're managed by the individual states. So it can't be a national conspiracy. It's state by state. So,
well, if the voting machines come from one place and they're put in different states, that's a problem.
So that they would basically be networking with each other. So, is it going to a central processing unit? So
it wouldn't have to. It was written into
Ohio and somebody else. Of course, the machines are one thing, but that doesn't mean that's going to just. It's not going necessarily to a Diebold processing center, is it?
No, but what they were claiming that the machines were being individually rigged, so you wouldn't know. I mean, it wasn't like there wouldn't be a central hub. It would, right, the machines that went to Pennsylvania had a certain code written into them, and the ones that went to other states. So the single source, Diebold makes ATM machines and safes. They're known, the world over for their secure systems. And here these engineers are going, oh my God, they're going to steal it. There is a solution I heard on NPR. If you're willing to, two ways to vote. You go down and you use your paper ballot and you vote at your precinct. Or if you're willing to give up a little bit of privacy, you vote by email. It would have to be something that could be double-checked if necessary. And so for the folks that didn't care, I don't care if people know who I vote for. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm okay with that. And if you wanted a private...
Is safer? I mean, I don't think anything should be on the Internet when you vote, personally.
Well, I think your email, once you voted in, it could be sent. Your ballot could be sent back to you, and you could check it. Anyway, I think there's ways states are successfully doing this. If you're willing to give up a little bit of privacy to vote on email, fine. And if not, go down and cast a paper ballot at the precinct. I think more people would vote that way.
Yeah, I mean, if it's safe, I mean, you might be right. I just the idea of using the Internet to vote, I'm a little queasy about because of all the hacking that goes on. But to me, it seems like you do a paper ballot. And it's not, when you say paper, it's not counted, individually. It goes through the machine. It's picked up by the photograph. What's it called? It's computer. It's tabulated through the computer. So I don't know enough about it. Why the voting machine is superior? It would be superior to that. But I think it should be on a paper ballot because it's very important to have a paper document. Because when you have a recount or if there's a suspicion, you go back to the actual documents. And so I think it should be very clear, and I think it should be the same in every state. Do you think so? I mean, do you agree with that?
Well, we have the voting machines here are both. You vote by computer, and when you're done, it prints out a scroll, a roll of paper like an old-fashioned cash register tape that you take to the and hand in with your ballot. So there is a backup paper ballot for every vote cast.
Yeah. I mean, I just, again, I mean, I know I'm being overly, suspicious, but I mean, I know enough about computers to realize that even that can be finagled with, because.
But you're looking at it as you hand it back.
You're getting a paper ballot, but on the internals of the computer, you don't know what it's doing. So I mean,
that's a good point.
I would just have a paper ballot. I suppose it could be fake too, but it'd be pretty difficult. If you have millions and millions and millions of paper ballots.
How short our memory is. We were doing a recount of paper ballots in Broward County, Florida, in January of 2000, when 2001, when Catherine Harris exercised her quote unquote legal rights to stop the recount. Right. She stopped it. We had paper ballots, but one person, under extraordinary circumstances, who was on a highly political move, stopped the recount.
Yeah, I remember. That's right. Thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah, I remember that very well now. Yeah, I mean, listen. First of all, I mean, it's. I think everyone acknowledges there is some fraud going on. There's no question about that. And what we need to do as a nation is to do whatever we can to fix it. I definitely think that every state having a different system doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I think in the United States, I mean, I live in Massachusetts. You live in Ohio. So certainly Ohio has its government. Massachusetts has its government. But you know what? When it comes to elections, I feel that a fair election in Ohio is just as important to me as it is to you, and a fair election in Massachusetts is just as important to you as it is to me. The integrity of the elections matter. It's fundamental. It's like free speech. Free speech, you know, we have free speech in all the states. Some things are fundamental. So I just think there should be standardized voting, and in every, you know, and there should be, you know, every angle should be looked at. Because you know what, in a democracy, what's more important than the fairness and the honesty of an election? It's the very basic principle of the democracy, voting. I mean, it doesn't get more basic than that. So that's the way I look at it. I think it's all the same. I don't care what, you know, if you're living in Alabama, I mean, I'm offended if I would find out that there was voter fraud in Alabama, even though I've never been there. You know, and I don't agree with your politics on the Maine, whatever. I would be personally offended as an American to think if the election there was cheating was going on. So I think every American should want fair elections in every village, every town, every city, every state, every national election. It's the American way. It should be fair. And if it's not, there's something wrong. So the thing is not to do what Trump is doing by trying to 2.5 months ahead of time, saying it's going to be rigged if I lose. What an idiot! But if I win, it won't be rigged. I mean, but the other thing about him is he has the emotional status of an 8-year-old boy, a spoiled 8-year-old boy. And I'm not the first one to say this. I've seen it. I mean, he manifests it all the time. He puffs, he moans, he pouts. He's a child. And this guy is it could still become president. Unbelievable. Oh gosh, I just realized that we skipped right by the break, Scott.
We can always do it now.
That's what I'm going to do. I think we're going to end it. I think I'm going to end the show now. I said I want to appreciate Scott and joining me for this time, and I want you, when I close out in the American way, I want you to listen to my commercials. It's the American way. It's fair. It's only fair that you listen to my commercials. So anyway, so this has been, you know, I got a little emotional today, but I'm glad about it because, you know, I'm very emotional about this. I've been completely consumed by this election. I really have been. But this does conclude tonight's broadcast. Thanks very much, Scott, once again. For links to my book, Ethical Empowerment, my philosophical counseling and hypnotherapy practice, and the Social Philosophizers Club, please visit arthurdschwartz.com. And this is Arthur D. Schwartz reminding you to live well and think deeply. So until next time, good night, everybody.
Ethical Empowerment, Virtue Beyond the Paradigms by Arthur D. Schwartz is a manifesto of non-doctrinaire perspective. A broad range of ideas and principles are discussed, but the ethical challenge is always to keep the diversity, depth, and breadth of philosophic perspective within the boundaries of love. One of the many transformative ideas discussed in Ethical Empowerment is a new type of patent system that would dramatically expedite the development of inventions by fairly rewarding inventors while at the same time eliminating monopolistic control of patents and threats of technological suppression. This proposal for a new patent system would unleash a new era of technology that has hitherto been thought impossible, and empower a new era of economic flourishing. Ethical Empowerment is available at Amazon.com and most online booksellers in both print and ebook editions. And listen to Arthur the first and third Wednesday of each month, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific Time on the Artist First Radio Network.
Hi, this is K-Nut from Norwegian band Tripod. Check us out at facebook.com/tripodofficial. You are listening to the Artist First Radio Network.
This is Arthur D. Schwartz. You know, beliefs and disbeliefs can be very powerful. Much like philosophy, hypnotism is concerned with belief. Hypnotherapy, a practical application of hypnotism, may largely be described as the practice of removing false beliefs that form mental blocks to success, to happiness, and to well-being. In my hypnotherapy and philosophical counseling practice, I combine my work in philosophy with hypnotism in order to clear mental blockages that can occur on both conscious and subconscious levels. A mental block may be conscious or subconscious and can be expressed, for example, in the form of anxiety, low self-esteem or low motivation, bad habits, tobacco habits, weight gain, low performance, and much more. If you are interested in using hypnosis and the power of the mind to overcome mental blocks and barriers that have emerged in your life, please feel free to give me a call at 617-964-4800 or visit www.integralhypnosis.com. That's INTGRALHYPNOSIS.com.